Hey guys, King of Charmanders here, and today I give to you the best advanced charge blade guide. This guide is for those who know the basics of the charge blade. So if you don't know the basics of the charge blade, I have a video on the basics of the charge blade, and you can check it out in the video description or clicking on this little thumbnail right over here. In this guide, I will go over advanced techniques and mechanics in this guide, so things like guard point, transforming your axe, tricks, etc. on the charge blade. Alright, let's jump right into it. First, we're going to go over how to shield thrust. Number 1, tap and hold to guard. Number 2, swipe down to load files. And then number 3, you swipe up. Shield thrust will do 2 hits of damage. If your shield is charged, it will also do effect damage based on your file type. For example, impact file will build up stun, and power elemental files will do elemental damage. Next, we're going to go over how to charge your shield. Number 1, you shield thrust. This is why we are going through the shield thrust first, because in order to charge your shield, you must first know how to shield thrust. Number 2, you tap and hold to go into amped elemental discharge or AID or AED. Now after you tap and hold, you swipe up and bam, your shield icon at the bottom left next to your files, as you see right over here, will turn red and glow red for the duration. Your shield will also glow red. So you see my shield glowing red, that means your shield is charged. But before we go into your charged shield, you need to charge your files, and you need to do it quickly. So this is the quick shield charge combo. This combo is the fastest way to fill your files and the best option for boosting your shield quickly. Step 1, you have charge double slash. So you hold and release to do a charge double slash. In this one, I'm going to tell you to tap to go into step 2, because me personally, I could tap like 3 or 4 times during the animation, and you'll go into step 2, which is the spinning slash, which is tapping during step 1. Step 3, you have the charge double slash, which you hold and release. So hold and release to do another charge double slash. Step 4, charge your files. Tap, hold, and swipe down to load your files onto your shield. At step 5, you have shield thrust, so swipe up to do a shield thrust. At step 6, go into your amped elemental discharge, where you tap and hold in axe mode. And for step 7, last but not least, we have charging your shield by swiping up. If you did everything right, the shield icon next to your files should turn red. Now that we went over the quick charge combo, now we're going to go over charge shield advanced mechanics. So the amount of files you load into your charge blade depends on the color of your Phial Gauge. So if it's yellow, you will load 3 files, and if it's the color red, you will load 5 files. Alright, and here's some charge shield advanced mechanics. The shield stays charged longer depending on how many files you use. So for 1, it's about 10 seconds, 2 is about 18 seconds, 3 is about 26 seconds, 4 is about 34 seconds, and 5 is about 42 seconds. Also, your charge shield increases axe mode damage by 20%. So if you use your axe mode while you are in charge shield mode, this will do about 20% more damage. Moving on, we covered advanced charge shield mechanics. Now, there's another thing you can do with a charge shield. You can also guard. So this is charge shield guard mechanics. While your shield is charged, you will do damage after guarding against a monster's attack. Now, this type of damage will depend on your file type. So impact files can also stun, and power elemental files will do elemental damage. You can also do damage when you guard with something called guard points. But before we talk about guard points, we need to know how to Morph Slash. So Morph Slashing is an attack you do when you go from axe to sword mode. And there are 2 ways to Morph Slash. Number 1, you tap on your special skill button in axe mode when your special skill is not fully charged. Because if you press on that while it's fully charged, you're going to do a super amped elemental discharge. But if it's not fully charged, you can tap on it again while you're in axe mode again to do a Morph Slash. Or you have number 2, you swipe up while holding amped elemental discharge or AID. Alright, now that we covered that, we can cover charge blade guard points. So guard points allow you to auto guard when your shield is in front of you during enemy animations. And there are 4 ways to guard point. The first one is executing your normal guard right before a monster attack. So when you do a normal guard right before a monster attack, your sword glows red right here, and if you block, that executes a guard point. The next 3 are when your sword and axe transform. So when you go from sword to axe or axe to sword, there are guard points associated with this as well. For guard point number 2, we have start of sword to axe Morph Slash. Next at number 3, you have the end of spinning slash. And at number 4, you have End of Axe to Sword Morph Slash. Now the thing about this one, you notice I'm just using the Spinning Slash footage because that's exactly what it is. However, going from Axe to Sword Morph Slash, there's a little more of an animation timing, so this one's really hard to pull off, so don't rely on it. And now here are mechanics regarding guard point. Successful guard points will give you +1 to your Phial Gauge. Executing a guard point will increase your guard. Executing a guard point with a charge shield will further increase defense and knockback. Guard points can proc offensive guard, except it still needs the timing, so keep this in mind. And if an attack doesn't knock you back, you can go straight into an Amped Elemental Discharge or SAED, as you see here. Bam. I get hit, the attack doesn't knock me back in this guard point, and I go straight into an Amped Elemental Discharge. Next up, we have Axe Mode, and here are some advanced mechanics. Tapping on the special skill button while your files are charged in Sword and Shield mode will load them and transform into Axe mode. So you have to be in Sword and Shield mode, but you tap it, this will transform you into Axe mode. Remember, your axe does 20% more damage when you load files onto it. So when you swipe down, you load a file, and then you let it rip. When your axe is charged like this, and you hit the monster, it will do 20% more damage than if your axe wasn't charged. Remember, your axe does 20% more damage when your shield is charged, so you might want to transform when your shield is charged if you can. And holding SAED and swiping up will cancel Axe mode and morph back to Sword and Shield, which is the Morphing Slash. Next up, we have Axe mode vulnerability points. So there are several points in Axe mode where you're most vulnerable to being attacked. These are where if a monster attacks you and you're in the middle of this motion, you're likely going to get hit. So you're going to have to dodge or just hope you finish and you have the ability to dodge after the attack animation of the monster. At number 1, we have the Circle Axe combo. This is when you're swinging your axe around and does 3 or 4 hits, I believe. And you can dodge after you finish the combo, but during the combo, it's a big window for you to end up getting attacked. At number 2, we have the Amped Elemental Discharge, and number 3, the Super Amped Elemental Discharge. Now for the Amped Elemental Discharge, you're going to go overhead charge and then swing your axe over your head, and then bam, it will do damage. For the Super Amped Elemental Discharge, you do one additional swing before you swing the axe above your head to smash the monster in front of you. So just keep that in mind, there is a little bit of time for the Amped Elemental Discharge after you smack it onto the ground. And for number 3, for the Super Amped Elemental Discharge, it's the same exact thing, it's just because of that extra attack animation, you're left even more open. So due to this, it's better to execute axe attacks when you have a safe opening and good positioning. Next up, we have Overcharging or Phial Gauge. You know your Phial Gauge is overcharged when your sword glows red. Your Phial Gauge will also glow bright red, like you see right here. Red means dead, or red means danger actually, because what happens in this instance is your attacks will do minus 30% damage if you continue to attack while you're overcharged. So do your best to avoid this by using files when your gauge is full. However, which is better? Amped Elemental Discharge or Super Amped Elemental Discharge? This is SAED versus SAED. So, SAED Super Amped Elemental Discharge does about 30% more damage than its original version, which is AED. SAED will use all of your files, so when you use the Super Amped Elemental Discharge, it will discharge all of your files, while Amped Elemental Discharge or AED will only use one file. Both will force you back into Sword and Shield, but Amped Elemental Discharge, the original version, lets you spam it again as long as you have files. In addition, here's how to use Super Amped Elemental Discharge or SAED without a full special skill gauge. So you can use SAED without using your special skill, and it has 3 steps. Step number 1, you load files. You do this by holding and swiping down. Number 2, you hold Amped Elemental Discharge and swipe up to charge your shield. And then step 3, you tap, hold, and release, and then bam, there's the Super Amped Elemental Discharge without using your special skill. And last but not least, we have the Perfect Dodge. Doing a Perfect Dodge in Sword and Shield or Axe mode will fill your Phial Gauge by 1. Tapping after Sword and Shield will allow you to do a Spinning Slash. And tapping after Axe mode will do a Side Axe Slash. Don't over-rely on Perfect Dodges, but it's super nice because when you do, again, you get 1 Phial Gauge, so if you plan on going to Amped Elemental Discharge, it's perfect. If you're looking for builds, check out my builds videos for ideas, as you see that right here, and I have 2 of them and more. Hopefully those of you Charge Blade mains are loving the weapon so far. The Charge Blade has a lot of power, and it actually does a lot of damage in comparison to some of the other weapon types. but it's very complicated, and hopefully this guide did help you out, or if you already knew this, hopefully it gave you an idea of, hey, there's a little something here, a little extra that you might have not known about. If I missed something here, go ahead and put it in the comments, and of course, as usual, please do me a huge favor, like, subscribe, and comment for the YouTube algorithm. These videos take a while, and this one took so long just because I wanted to make sure I had everything that was super technical put together. Good luck on your grinds, and I will see y'all on the next video.
Ciao!